Hello, and welcome in the second week. I want to further extend the lecture material in terms of talking about um, the way in which we segment our audiences as a marketing sort of in terms of our marketing approach. So, what I wanted to do was share with you some insider information, having run and running a marketing agency, and talk about how small to medium sized businesses do this. Okay, so in order to show you what's done and how they approach it, we'd got a company that I was working with, are a software company, different to the last one that I spoke about last week. And they specialise in software for commercial. So basically, if you want to build a property and you want to know if you're a supermarket like Aldi or you want to build a new pub, you would want to find information about footfall, about income in a certain area, about potential land opportunities, about any planning permission issues. So you want to find key plots of land, but you want to do quite a lot. There's quite a lot that you need to find out about that land that matches your criteria. And you can find various information from different sources. So the founders of Nimbus, they came from the commercial development market, and they worked out how to correlate various information from the government about plots of land and planning permission that's freely available actually, or some of the information they've actually managed to get isn't freely available but is to their users. So they managed to get from the Land Registry Office, which is part of the government, and then they've corresponded or sort of got that information and brought it together with other sources. So they get very rich data and information for potential developments. So what they wanted to do, so we're looking today at how would they segment and decide which audiences to go for. Okay, so when I started working with them, they'd already done quite a lot of work on this because obviously it's really, really important to know who you're going to be talking to. So let's just recap. They're again business to business because the people here are generally not developing for their own home, so they're not individual developers, private developers, but some of them could be. But the majority of their market is going to be organisations that are property, have an interest in property. Okay, so I'll just share with you some of the information that I wrote down from them when I first met them about they created what they called avatars. And avatars are almost like profiles of their ideal customer. Um, so they looked at who might be interested in their services, but then ranked them in terms of actually were they interested in them as potential clients. So the first audience they looked at were people who own homes, who were just interested in a report on their house in terms of anything to do with the land around it. Um, so this could be something, so they might want to be getting an extension to their house and they need to understand the building's profile in order to be able to apply for an extension. But generally, these aren't very big value. There are one-off ad hoc users. So Nimbus decided they weren't their ideal market. Okay, so the next one that they profiled was called a commercial developer. So in terms of the commercial developers, they are ones that are looking frequently for the best opportunities. So they buy properties with an investor and then they look at redeveloping the land and making as much money as possible. So they want to be really shrewd in the areas that they pick to develop on. And they actually had a number here of different subdivisions of these. So these might be to do with buying to develop and sell, buying or buy to design, or buy to manage and let these properties, or there might be surveyors. So they've got quite a few different within the commercial developer. So you can have a job role, and then within it can fire off different tranches, and actually there might be different messages within that. So let's have a look about their motivations. So they want to find the right areas to buy. They want to understand their options to the fullest. They don't want to waste their time, so they want to understand, look, if there's a major issue here, if it's greenbelt land, so it will not get development, you can't basically develop on it. They want to know, and actually, if this service tells them that, it's been well worth investing in. And they want to assess the local marketplace as well. They want to understand the potential returns. So Nimbus, the software provider, gives them different ways in which they can find land. And so what we also want to understand with this group, because this group looks pretty good and pretty much on track with who we want to be selling to, what on earth is going to stop them using Nimbus? And we realised it's budget, because actually they're concerned about investing in the wrong things. So they're going to be nervous about that. If budget is a genuine concern, and what we have to be really careful of, if we're creating profiles and avatars of these segments, are we creating them based on our perceptions of what they think, or are we creating them based on our knowledge of how they behave? And the only way we can get knowledge is by conducting research and actually asking them. So we might have a steering group, and this was one of my recommendations with Nimbus, that they had super users. So those people that engage with them regularly, they solicit their opinions, they understand their motivations, they do quite a lot of work on it, and that was quite an effective way of really understanding and connecting with their audiences. And the other concerns they might have is around IT, and especially if they're not very IT literate, and the time it takes them to go get to understand it. So what they're introducing through their software is change. It's doing something differently, using something differently than they've ever used before. So what you need to do is understand the psychology about what's stopping people make that change. Is it that they don't just, would they be willing to make the change, but they don't know about it? Okay, so we've got developers, commercial developers. So these are people that actually make things happen, whether it's design, whether it's creating it to rent. And then we've got people who are passive is the wrong word, but they're not as proactive in terms of managing the project and making it happen. These are commercial investors. Okay, so there was a profile here of someone who actually puts their money into property developments. So we're talking about here who are people who are more hands-off, and tend to be, because of that, they tend to be at a different stage in their career. So they could involve people such as the founders of Nimbus. Their dad was actually a commercial investor. They are less likely to want to take risk. So actually, some of the functionality that Nimbus offers through their software in terms of reducing risk would be perfect for them. They want to make sure that they do the right sort of investment. So again, this is about risk mitigation. They want to make sure, actually long term, that if they are investing in rental properties, that they've got a good ongoing income. So by understanding the landscape and the long term plans around that, that's going to be really work well for them. They want to make sure that they're getting the properties at the right market price, and actually that they're putting their rent at the right price for that area as well. So this is understanding about the marketplace in terms of returns. So in terms of what Nimbus gives this audience, it brings together and provides a real transparency of all the information in terms of who's doing what in that area, how much people are paying, how much they're paid for a property, what's the going rate for rent, do they buy off plan, and then they give a really good indication of the landscape locally. So we've got to think about, okay, so that sounds like it could be a good match. So what's stopping this potential audience? This audience, it's about the technology. They could actually really not understand how to use it properly, not understand the full of it. And also, it's a new way of doing business. And they may feel like, you can't teach me anything, I've been in the property business for so many years, I've been investing successfully, why do I want something new? Okay. So you'll see so far, what we've looked at in terms of our segments, our homeowners, our commercial developers, our commercial investments, we're looking at roles that they play. So almost like the functions, how they define themselves. Then within that, we're building other aspects of their profile. We're suggesting a particular age, a particular level of experience, particularly we're making assumptions on their IT adoption. And actually all of this is, you need to be quite careful in terms of building these profiles up, because are they subjective? Are they just based on your ideas, or are they actually factually based? So we're moving on now to residential developers. So we've looked previously at commercial developers. And we have got commercial developers in there. We've got individuals who might invest in property. We've got agents. We've got professionals who do it for a living or do it for their company. We've got architects in here. So we're grouping together people with a great deal of experience. And what they did with their avatars as well, they actually considered real people, so people that they knew. And this was very helpful to them. The reason being is they knew what their motivations were, they knew what their challenges are. So actually, rather than just being a sort of faceless, they were fortunate because they came from the industry. And so that inside information allowed them to present or prepare better profiles. So we're looking at actually for all these people, what have they got in common? So we know they're looking for opportunities, generally larger sites, because actually it costs them quite a lot to get involved anyway. If they're professionals, even their insurances, the way that they do things, they don't want tiny opportunities. They want things that are going to give them some really good returns. So there's particularly there, we give an example of a small niche property development company called Spitfire Homes that looks for very nice areas in which to develop homes that are £500,000 and plus. So what they want is to understand what's coming onto the market and be able to make decisions fairly quickly, go make it happen, and that's what we're going to do. So what they care about, they do not want to be wasting their money. They're going to be spending too much time and effort into it. They want to get the information really quickly because time is money. They want to be able to make a decision based on what the market's like, and they want to find market opportunities. So actually Nimbus really helps them because it's quick and easy to use, and they can develop a profile in terms of the constraints that they're working towards. They can bring together residential values locally. So in other words, if it's Spitfire Homes wanting particularly expensive homes, if they're looking to develop, it might be a beautiful country sort of area. However, if the local housing is an average price that's well below the national average, they may decide that would actually impact on the potential prices they could sell for their development, and thus would decide against investing in that area. So it's all about speed of information for the person who's potentially going to buy the land. Okay. They may feel Nimbus doesn't offer them what they want. They don't see the value. They've already got the information they need. They have contacts. They might have contacts with local councillors and planning committees, so they already know. And actually, if they're very local based, they probably feel that their local knowledge is better than what's been brought together by a series of correlated databases. They may use a competitor, because actually there are competitors to Nimbus's products and services that are more established and better known. So we say they don't see the value, but they also don't see the need for it. They don't understand why would they need to know the local property prices. And they just can't, they're so busy with the developments. It's such a fast-paced thing. They haven't got the time to take on board a new process. And the other thing is, we might have some very ambitious people within the team, but we realise that we have sorry about this, let me go back. We're not able to get approval above, so approval to spend the money, approval to spend the time, and therefore can't progress with using it. Okay. So another property group here, we've got private residential properties developers. So these are people that are individuals with significant capital that want to buy properties. So they're looking at their return on investment. They want to understand in terms of value for money of the land around there, understanding how much money they're potentially going to get back from it. They're looking at planning, historically planning applications, are they granted? Where is unused land if they're successful in their acquisition and create some lovely properties there? Is the scope locally to do more of this? So this is all quite useful information for them to understand what the potential is locally. And actually, what they want to do is they just want to make sure they're making the right decisions. Again, they cannot afford to make the wrong decisions, and they don't want to create fabulous properties where people can't afford to buy them or aren't interested. Commercial investors, again, could fit into here. So we've got some groupings where we see people, different types, the same people fitting in the way that they'd done their segmentation. So they'd done it differently to the way that I'd suggested. So what I did when I started working with them, so that was what we started with on theirs, and they'd spent time and they'd drawn up a series of flip charts, creating all these different profiles. Now, when we look at basis for segmentation, there's something that's really, really important in that, and that is they've looked at job roles as the main way of doing it, business to business, different types of businesses. And they'd missed the psychological profile. Okay. And this is what I felt really would differentiate and improve their marketing efforts, really, in terms of not talking to in terms of making sure they talk to the right people. And what happened was, when I met them, they were really, really frustrated because they'd got a fabulous product, but people just weren't taking it up. They didn't see the value of it, and they just felt like they were putting a lot out there and getting very little back. So we used the MOST framework, which I discussed last week as the one that I feel is very practical for small businesses. And we also looked at the concept of the marketing exchange, which I introduced last week. So what's in it for the client and what's in it for Nimbus, and it needs to make sure that that works throughout the whole of the process, all their marketing activities. What I found really useful with Nimbus is actually the mission part of it, because so Nimbus was very different to the company I spoke about last week. The company last week had just got one key individual that ran it and a couple of contractors. The company this week that we're talking about, they'd got two founders that were brothers, and they'd got a couple of other directors that they brought on board. And actually, if you've got a number of different parties involved in terms of growing a business, you need to establish a shared vision and mission. And so actually, through the work I'd done with them, they came up with this idea that actually this is what they were about. So they learn through the various bits of software that they can correlate together in order to create really, really good knowledge. They share that, and then as a result, their clients prosper. And they felt that was a very neat way of explaining what they did. So actually that exercise in itself as a marketing activity really helps them work on their value proposition. And one of the key things that we did in terms of the customer profile was we understood that what they're really about is sharing this experience in terms of best practice in doing business. So what they do creates incredible depth of information and knowledge. However, people that are closed-minded and have been in the industry a long time and aren't open to changing their processes or ways, they are never, ever going to have good results with. Therefore, their marketing activities and marketing plan had to be focused on what I termed as educators. And by educators, I don't mean universities or like that. I mean professionals who work with their clients to give them the best knowledge and information. So actually, behaviourally, if we add this into the segmentation, we're talking about open-minded individuals. We're talking about people who will never stop learning. We're talking about people who are keen to invest the time and interest that they've got. They're never content. They always want to be doing it better. And actually, by terming educators, this allowed Nimbus to then approach different types of organisations as well and add them to their target customers. So they're looking for educators within the property community who see their software as part of the toolkit that they use regularly. And so this really, really helps because it meant if you need to perceive yourself, so basically if you want to be perceived rather as an educator, which Nimbus wanted to do as someone with excellent insights and information, they needed to position themselves differently. They needed to work closely with the industry bodies to do talks, to do presentations, sharing the figures that they'd found, sharing the insights they'd found, and actually even potentially work with universities to give licenses to courses where people were dealing with property. So they'd already got a track record with professionals. However, so there it was more about reinforcing that actually it's the savvy choice to work with Nimbus. And they also operated what's called a freemium model. So in other words, you got a free version that was a light touch version, and then if you wanted more of the functionality, you upgraded to Elite. So we talked through the benefits of what they offer, we set some objectives, and then we defined different groups, and their strategy was going to be very different according to the different groups. So we talked about the profiles of different people that they're going to work with. And I also came up with this idea of this paradox. So actually, they should be working with educators, so people where they're working together, even though they're educators. So professionals are their gateway. So other people who are really well respected in the field of property development to share the word about Nimbus and raise their profile. So they need to align with these. So we looked at different organisations that are seen as educational in the property field. And actually there was one which was a conferencing company that ran events on property development and management. So we looked at the sorts of conferences that they run in order to see, could Nimbus run a seminar for them? Could they dovetail onto an existing one, so be part of an existing conference that they ran? So we came up with an idea on that. We looked at an industry body, because again, this is about if they're educators, they need to be talking to other credible institutions within property. So RICS was one there. And actually, in terms of the actions, you see, I did the research on the sorts of papers that RICS had provided, where they could fit into that, how they could contribute, and how they should approach RICS. There was another one, which is a property sort of quality assurance mark, and we looked there at the conferences that they run and how they could work with them. And the workshops that they could run for them. Again, I gave them a detailed approach as to what they should look at. Another obvious fit would be around architects, and we looked at the institute there. We also looked at what might actually pique their interest, but for some, it was unlikely that actually they probably would ever work together with them, because do you remember I said they needed to work with people that are open-minded rather than closed-minded? And we felt with the Royal Institute of British Architects that the sorts of talks, the sort of value that they add to their members didn't necessarily work well with it was more about tours, it was more sort of quite academic rather than a practitioner focused, and actually Nimbus are practitioner focused educators. Okay. The House Builders Federation we felt was also a very good fit because they're quite pioneering and always looking for best practice. And then we looked at using a segment as their existing clients, and they hadn't even thought about this. And the reason being, once you've sold someone, why would they be a segment? Well, they are, because in that you could develop a super user base. And we talked about this idea of a leadership board. So any internal developments of their product would come from their existing clients, and the existing clients would say, we really want to be using this, we want to be doing this, and they'd have a leadership board and they'd put their requests on there, and then people would vote for them, and this would help the product and service evolve in conjunction with the segments that they're already serving. I'm just trying to think what else we do. So other ones we considered were property investment training companies, and they already work with those. And we talked about a couple of, they work with them, and so they already had a track record. They had a commercial arrangement with them, and we talked about doing more of the same there. Because again, it's this alignment between educators. So they're the educator, and the property investment training companies are also educators, and that worked particularly well. So just think, even if organisations have a clear idea of who they're segmenting, if you go in with an external perspective, you can actually get to get deep down to, are they missing something behaviourally? Is there a psychology? Is there a profile that actually is something that's required for them to have a real connection with their client base? So hopefully, I know this is sort of quite detailed, but it gives you an idea of an existing business and how they've gone about segmenting, and then an external perspective in terms of the other opportunities that they were then missing, but hopefully have since adopted by repositioning and really understanding what that marketing exchange is. And then that opens up more segments for them.